Bartholomew Van Sneezington III, industrial magnate, yacht collector, and runner-up in last year's most eligible Mephistopheles Awards, had planned his Tuesday with the clockwork precision of a Swiss watch that had bullied other Swiss watches at boarding school. The morning would begin with a gratuitous helicopter landing on the roof of his headquarters, followed by a holographic shareholder rally, a light artisan sin at brunch, and, at precisely noon, the unveiling of his newest scheme for global domination, GiggleNet Plus, the first streaming service that came preloaded into people's dreams. The concept was brilliant in its horribleness. Ordinary advertising assaulted a consumer when they were awake and irritable. GiggleNet Plus would target them when they were asleep and defenseless, sliding brand messaging between odd, marshmallowy dream fragments. Bars of soap would serenade them with motivational power ballads. Toothpaste mascots would step in as life coaches. When the victims woke, they would head straight for the store without even knowing why. All Bartholomew needed was to present the final demo, laugh maniacally, and watch the big checkmarks tick across the globe. Alas, one thing separated him from the pantheon of timeless villains: histamines. Ever since his boarding school days, Bartholomew's sinuses had been the stuff of legend. A classmate once said the boy could detect a single geranium at 1,000 paces. Shortly before Bartholomew detected it, sneezed upon it, and had it uprooted. Over the years he had endured allergy shots, antihistamines, herbal tinctures, and an experimental treatment involving a wombat wearing a stethoscope. Nothing had worked. If pollen floated anywhere within his county of residence, his eyes watered, his nose clogged, and, worst of all, his voice lost the deep, baritone resonance so essential to a proper moi-ha-ha. Therefore, on Tuesday, when Bartholomew stepped off his helicopter and inhaled a lungful of what he assumed was crisp morning air, the microscopic spores of 6 different ornamental pear trees flew up his nostrils like unwelcome party guests. By the time he reached the penthouse boardroom, not even the mahogany air purifiers could keep the sniffles at bay. "My loyal leadership team," he announced, trying for villainous gravel but landing on congested falsetto. "Tomorrow the world shall trem!" His voice cracked like porcelain beneath a forklift. He coughed, took a decorative linen square from the pocket of his obsidian suit, and dabbed discreetly. "Bless you, sir," said Claire, Executive Vice President of Evil Logistics. "Don't you dare bless me!" Bartholomew snapped. "I am allergic to benevolence." Claire raised a clipboard. "I'm happy to note that on the medical record, sir." Bartholomew pinched the bridge of his nose, already sensing the itch spreading across his sinuses like gossip. "Let's proceed. Dr. Balthazar, status on the Dreambeam satellites." Balthazar adjusted his steampunk goggles, although the goggles actually served no purpose other than brand synergy. "Dreambeam is fully operational. All we need is your authorization to go live." "Splendid. Claire. Shipping. 83 warehouses are standing by, sir, each stocked with targeted product bundles. If our data are correct, by Friday morning, 3.2 billion citizens will awaken with impulses to purchase honey bacon toothpaste and flock to our vending outlets like hypnotized penguins." Bartholomew clasped his hands, savoring the moment. "And then, dear team, while the world is unconscious..." "Ah! Huh!" He paused at the brink of a sneeze. "While the world is unconscious, we will..." The sneeze retreated, leaving him blinking. "We will." His left eye began to twitch. "Shall I fetch the emergency antihistamine?" Claire offered. Bartholomew snarled. "I'm fine. Villainy waits for no man's mucus." He straightened his spine like a picket fence. "Now, tomorrow we unveil GiggleNet Plus to the press. I will step onto the stage, announce my supremacy, and... He raised his arms for the flourish. A thin gust of air from the vent blasted a puff of dust directly at his face. Process servers, incompetent henchfolk, and allergy spores always seemed to find him. Ha! Ha! He began, mustering all his diaphragm power for a commanding cackle. Mwah ha ha! 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 Glottal collapse. His laugh cracked the way a church organ does when a raccoon crawls into the pipes. The sound landed somewhere between donkey bray and bagpipe. Silence. Even the air purifiers stopped whirring, as if they too needed a second to process the emotional damage. Bartholomew cleared his throat. Tomorrow. He tried again. It will be better. Or someone is getting fed to the corporate wellness coaches. That's the spirit, sir, said Claire, voice cheerful like a chainsaw made of daisies. Dr. Balthazar raised a cautious hand. If I may, sir, there's a, how shall I phrase it, botanical variable you might consider. Botanical. The auditorium you rented for the demo is the Franklin Conservatory. It's technically a greenhouse, sir, full of plants. Bartholomew's nostrils flared so wide, a nickel could have performed gymnastic routines inside. Who hired a greenhouse? You did, sir, Claire admitted. You said the glass ceiling provided symbolic irony. Curse my aesthetic sensibilities, Bartholomew muttered. Fine. Have the custodial drones vacuum every petal from that building. Already dispatched, Claire replied, nodding at her clipboard. Drone brooms 1 through 47 are en route. And get me, Dr. Seymour Sneesberg. The boardroom gasped. Dr. Sneesberg was a notorious allergist, disgraced after a failed attempt to treat hay fever using genetically modified tumbleweeds. His malpractice insurance premium alone was rumored to equal the GDP of Belgium. Claire ventured, Sir, Dr. Sneesberg's waiting list is 13 months. Bartholomew cracked his knuckles. I'll purchase the clinic and move him up. He spun on his leather-clad heel and stalked to the door, stopping only to swipe a diamond-studded tissue dispenser from the conference table. He needed serious artillery if he wanted to defeat nature in time for the press conference. Dr. Seymour Sneesberg's office smelled like the place where old couches went to die, but Bartholomew braved the aroma, flanked by 2 bodyguards in suits that could repel small arms fire and also contained pockets for snacks. The doctor appeared from behind a curtain of lurid floral wallpaper, wearing a lab coat sprinkled with what looked suspiciously like cornflakes. My dear Mr. Van Sneesington, the doctor began, rubbing his hands together. What can modern immunology do for you? Bartholomew sat, crossing his legs in a way that suggested royalty addressing townsfolk. I require a solution that lasts precisely 24 hours, commencing tomorrow at dawn. During that interval, I must be allergy-proof, impervious to pollen, dander, dust, existential dread, you name it. Price is no obstacle. I am, after all, a billionaire. The doctor nodded, as if accepting the price of milk, and began rummaging in a cabinet, labeled questionable. I have something promising. An experimental antihistamine nasal spray, augmented with micro-drones that physically punch allergens on a molecular level. I assume it's FDA approved. The doctor laughed as though Bartholomew had asked if gravity came with a warranty. Of course not. But we can skip the trial phase by calling it aromatherapy. Give it to me, Bartholomew commanded. 10 minutes later, after a brief consent form that read, YN, Bartholomew left the clinic with 2 sprays, an invoice the length of a novella, and an unsettling tingling in his nasal cavity. The tingling intensified until it felt like a boxing match was occurring just south of his cerebral cortex. But no sneeze arrived. He smiled. Tomorrow, the world would finally hear an unblemished mwahaha. Launch day dawned like a golden retriever. Enthusiastic and mildly slobbery, Bartholomew strode into the Franklin Conservatory, wearing a custom tuxedo with lapels so sharp they could julienne potatoes. The press had gathered in tight, quivering clusters, their cameras ready. Suspended overhead was a crystal podium from which he would address the world. Behind the scenes, dozens of henchfolk scurried, vacuuming every leaf or bud they spotted. Signage read, "No plants, no water, no photosynthesis." Ferns trembled as drones swept them into hermetically sealed containers. Bartholomew inspected the environment. The place looked barren, save for the glass walls and the stage. He sniffed experimentally. Nothing. Just pure, filtered air. Victory. He fingered the nasal spray inside his pocket, but decided not to jinx it. Showtime. Claire took the stage first, offering a few introductory remarks. Welcome, esteemed shareholders, reporters, and random influencers we lured here with macarons. Today, Mr. Van Sneezington will revolutionize nightly advertisement and subconscious persuasion. Please greet him with the appropriate level of fear. Applause thundered. Flashbulbs popped. A lone vlogger screamed, "Sponsorship opportunities!" and was promptly removed. Bartholomew adjusted his cufflinks, stepped up, and gripped the podium. Behind him, a giant LED screen flickered to life, depicting the GiggleNet Plus logo, a laughing cloud wearing earbuds. He cleared his throat once, a crisp, clear baritone. Oh yes, the spray was working. "Ladies and gentlemen, consumers of the world," he began, his voice projected like molten chocolate over a subwoofer. "You dream 15% of your life away. Time wasted, unwatched, unmonetized, but no more. With GiggleNet Plus, we transform your subconscious into prime advertising real estate." He waited, savoring the hush that fell over the audience. Somewhere, a photographer dropped a lens cap. Bartholomew smiled politely, then took a deep, theatrical breath. Mwah! Ha ha ha! The cackle sailed out bold, unbroken, magnificent. Ha ha! A minor crack, like the squeak of a teacup, crept in. He powered through it. Mwah! Ha ha ha! The laugh fractured. His larynx squealed in the register of a distressed clarinet. The effect was as if Beethoven's Fifth had slammed into a karaoke machine playing Baby Shark. The crowd murmured. Claire's clipboard twitched in her hands. Bartholomew slapped the podium. "Technical difficulty! One moment." He turned away from the microphone, tucked his head down, and hissed, "What is happening?" Dr. Balthazar emerged from backstage. "The drones report no pollen indoors, sir. All flora removed, as instructed." Bartholomew's nostrils flared. "Then why am I cracking like an ancient vinyl record?" A lighting technician called down. Sir? The beams from the skylight?" Bartholomew looked upward. Direct sunlight streamed through the greenhouse roof onto the stage, illuminating a gargantuan arrangement of pink lilies perched high overhead in a decorative balcony. He hadn't noticed it before, perhaps because it was 20 feet above ground and labeled "Gift from the City Mayor, Symbiosis in Bloom." "Claire!" Bartholomew roared, voice teetering. "On it, sir!" She keyed her tablet. A cleaning drone whirred up toward the bouquet, spinning saw blades like a miniature war helicopter. Bartholomew faced the audience again. "Forgive the intermission. A trifling floral oversight." The journalist from the Daily Reciprocity called out. "Is your subconscious network safe if it can be derailed by lilies?" Bartholomew bared shark-like teeth. "Everything is proceeding according to plan." Behind him, the drone reached the bouquet. Unfortunately, the rotating blades collided with a decorative sprinkler head. A faint hiss followed, like soda fizz but more ominous. Then, like raindrops from a very sarcastic cloud, water sprayed across the conservatory, activating dormant pollen grains that had settled inside every corner of the rafters. Invisible allergens descended in shimmering arcs. Bartholomew sensed a tickle. No, he refused. He reached for the spray in his pocket, gave himself 3 rapid pumps per nostril, and felt the microdrones engage, a tiny buzzing as they resumed molecular pugilism. "Where was I?" he said, returning to his speech. "Yes, global monetization. Starting midnight tonight." The microdrones faltered. Imagine thousands of microscopic robots developing performance anxiety at the same instant. The tickle amplified to a nerve-ending prickling crescendo. Ha! Bartholomew's nose scrunched, his cheeks puffed. A shockwave sneeze brewed, one that might classify on the geological Richter scale. He tried to fight by continuing his speech. "GiggleNet Plus will deliver curated advertisements!" A second hiss above them, another sprinkler. The drone had spiraled into it as well. Now moisture dropped like confetti at a birthday party for mold spores. Reporters scrambled to shield their equipment. One intern produced an umbrella decorated with cartoon frogs. Dr. Balthazar, desperate, shouted, "Sir, hold your breath!" Bartholomew inhaled by instinct, much like telling someone to not think of a giraffe. Too late. The inhalation sucked a swirling vortex of pollen straight up his nasal cavities. Ha! Ha! Choo! The sneeze blasted the microphone, producing a sonic boom that echoed like an angry tuba. Feedback wailed through the speakers. The podium tilted. The LED screen glitched, swapping to a buffering icon. Bartholomew staggered, watery eyes blinking. He grabbed the mic again, breath hitching for another bout. "GiggleNet will still proceed." Choo! Another detonation. This one caused a small tremor in the stage floor. "Oh boy," Claire murmured from the wings, clipboard cracking in her grip. "Structural integrity is at 44%. Reporters now live-stream the fiasco under captions like, "Billionaire attempts evil, sinuses object." Yet Bartholomew, stubborn as a GPS ignoring closed roads, raised a hand. "I am not done," he crowed. "Ha! Ha!" The laugh tried to make an entrance, but face-planted. His voice broke so severely, the audio spiked into frequencies heard only by whales. The world's first cetacean press corps turned in their distant oceans, confused. Face flushed, Bartholomew fumbled for the nasal spray again. Empty. He'd used the entire bottle. He pivoted toward Sneezeberg, who had slipped into the audience wearing a watchful grin. "Doctor!" Bartholomew barked. "More spray!" The doctor shrugged. That was the prototype. Side effects may include spontaneous throat yodeling. Yodeling? Bartholomew opened his mouth to retort, but instead produced a warbling. "Your delay! Hee-hoo!" It echoed off the glass canopy, prompting 2 startled pigeons to reroute their migration patterns. The press corps erupted in laughter. Phones recorded at 240 frames per second. Someone yelled, "Drop the evil mixtape!" Bartholomew's cheeks burned hotter than geothermal vents. "Silence! I command you to tremble before me." "Tremble? I can't even keep my phone steady," giggled a reporter. Claire stepped forward, voice pitched for crisis management. "Ladies and gentlemen, a brief commercial break." She motioned to a crew member to activate house music. The speakers boomed generic jazz. Dr. Balthazar whispered, "Sir, we might postpone until the pollen clears." Bartholomew glared. "If we postpone, the public sees weakness. I cannot allow that. Fetch me the biocontainment helmet." "The what?" "The titanium bubble with negative pressure airflow I ordered after that incident with the dandelion parade." 5 minutes later, Bartholomew returned to stage wearing a spherical helmet, reminiscent of a retro spacesuit, complete with built-in amplifier. The filtration fans whirred audibly. Through the visor, his glare magnified like angry moons. He rapped the microphone. "Citizens of Earth!" His voice boomed in Darth Vader tones. "Behold my resilience!" Someone shouted, "Why are you inside a fishbowl?" Bartholomew ignored the heckle. "With GiggleNet Plus, you will purchase, you will adore, you will obey. Mwah! Ha! Ha! Even through the helmet, his laugh cracked at "Ha!" The fans hiccuped, drawing pollen into their vents. The internal sensors beeped wildly. His amplifier squealed feedback again, but this time inside the helmet. He slapped the visor, disoriented. Radio static then. "Ha! Ha! Kash!" His voice disintegrated. The helmet sealed itself in emergency lock mode. Condensation fogged the interior. He was now yelling at himself in a personal weather system. Outside, the press watched, mesmerized. One cameraman muttered, "This is better than pay-per-view." Claire realized the optics were catastrophic. She waved to security to drop the curtains. They tried. The motor jammed, possibly allergic to competence. The curtains sagged at half-mast. Meanwhile, Bartholomew's heroic gesticulations pitched him backwards. He tripped over a cable, toppled, and rolled down the short set of stairs like a hamster inside a glossy hamster ball. Each bounce produced a muffled "ha, ka, ha, choo!" which ricocheted around the helmet like applause at a terrible stand-up gig. He came to rest against a floral display, ironically titled, "Hope Blooms Eternal." The audience gave him a standing ovation. Hours later, back in his office, Bartholomew nursed herbal tea, liquefied spite with a note of chamomile. His head throbbed. The press labeled him the Sneeze King. Memes exploded across every platform. And GiggleNet Plus stock had nosedived so fast it registered on meteorological radar. Investors pulled out funds before the closing bell rang. A rival streaming service offered free tissue boxes with every new subscription. Claire stood across the desk, clipboard now sporting a Band-Aid. "We have several options, sir. 1. Rebrand the entire fiasco as performance art about the fragility of power. 2. Pivot GiggleNet Plus to become a sleep aid channel. People did say your laugh was soothing before it yodeled. 3. Take a long vacation somewhere devoid of plants, like the Mariana Trench." Bartholomew sighed, voice raw. "I require a 4th option, one that ends in me victorious." Dr. Balthazar poked in from the doorway. "Sir, I've started designing a pollen-seeking missile. Diplomatic fallout, moderate to severe. Something subtler then. A global initiative to outlaw botany." Claire flipped pages. "Hard to spin in the marketplace." Bartholomew turned to the window, gazing at the city skyline shimmering behind a veil of tree pollen. He felt the itch again, lurking like a conspiracy. For once, instead of fury, it evoked a grudging respect. Nature, that unimpressed assassin, had thwarted him where heroes and regulatory agencies failed. He exhaled. "Perhaps we scale back," he murmured. "Sir," Claire asked, startled, "don't misinterpret. I remain committed to unethical innovation. But maybe I start smaller, test markets only. Less grand theatrics until my sinuses are weaponized." Dr. Balthazar brightened. "I do have a blueprint for anti-pollen nanobots with flamethrower attachments. Field trials could start in Nevada." Bartholomew cracked the ghost of a smile. "Progress. Let us reconvene tomorrow. With masks." Claire scribbled a note. "I'll secure industrial respirators." The villain sank into his chair. Outside, the setting sun painted the sky peach and gold. Dust motes floated in the beam of light through the blinds. One landed on his desk. He eyed it warily but didn't sneeze. Perhaps the earlier ordeal had purged his system, or perhaps his body simply lacked the strength for rebellion. He permitted himself a small laugh, testing the waters. Mwah! Ha! Ha! The first syllables came smooth, but ha cracked like adolescent voice change, descending into a squeak reminiscent of a rusty door. He reached for a tissue and dabbed, chuckling despite himself. Villainy was an art. So were timing, showmanship, and product placement. But above all, villainy demanded persistence. If the world hadn't yet surrendered, neither had he. Tomorrow his laugh would return, fortified by science or brute force. And if not tomorrow, then next Tuesday. He had penciled it in between haircut and portfolio review. Bartholomew Van Sneezington III blew his nose with imperious dignity, then spun his chair toward a bank of monitors blinking with financial data, satellite feeds, and a cat video playlist entitled Research. Plans recalibrated in his mind like chess pieces after a rainstorm. The world had underestimated two things today: the potency of airborne pollen and his appetite for revenge. One down, one to go. He smirked, braced for a last tingle of rebellion, and uttered his battle cry, voice hoarse but unbowed. Mwah! Ha! Ha! Crook! Ha! Choo! Somewhere deep inside the ducts of his headquarters, the air filters groaned in sympathy.